It's Friday, November 20. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Jamaica's economy has contracted by an estimated real value added 11.3% in July to September quarter. Speaking at a recent quarterly briefing, the Planning Institute of Jamaica's Director General, Dr. Wayne Henry, pointed to the COVID-19 pandemic as one of the main reasons for the downturn.
The estimated outturn for the review quarter largely reflected the negative impact of 1. A surge in COVID-19 confirmed cases globally and locally, with Jamaica recording an increase of over 800% to 6,555 confirmed cases as at September 30 relative to June 30. This negatively impacted economic activities through reduced demand and a slowing in the pace of reopening.
Since July, the Jamaican government has eased some of the restrictions it had initially imposed in response to the pandemic. However, the uncertainty has shaken business and consumer confidence. Dr. Henry says employment has suffered, but some industries, such as construction and agriculture, have had upticks.
Approximately 135,800 fewer persons were employed in July 2020 relative to 2019. This represented the largest decline on record. However, a further decline was tempered by improved weather conditions, which facilitated growth in the agriculture, forestry and fishing industry. Note that the sustained heavy rainfall we've experienced started in October. Also an uptick in construction activities, owing to the industry's exemption from some COVID-19 management measures.
The figures given by the PIOJ are preliminary estimates. The actual figures will be released in December, and at that time the estimates will be updated. The Parliamentary Joint Select Committee considering the Sexual Harassment Bill had its first sitting of the legislative year on Thursday. Melvin Pennant tells us more.
The Education Ministry serves approximately 600,000 students and over 25,000 teachers island-wide. They have now entered the debate on the sexual harassment debate in schools and institutions. CEO of the National Parenting Support Commission, Casey Carr, says the bill is very much needed.
Having served education for 25 years, throughout the gamut of the system as a teacher, as a principal, as an education officer, now head of the National Parenting Support Commission, I would have seen many things, heard many things, and many times I would have felt as if I did not have a discourse or a recourse, I beg your pardon, to deal with many of the things I would have heard. I am very pleased, therefore, that we're here at this time to ensure that there is recourse for persons who have been victimized over many years. Sexual harassment, we believe, has been normalized to some degree in this society.
Legal counsel in the Education Ministry, Heidi Gordon, says that if left unchecked, sexual harassment in schools can escalate into criminal offenses.
We adopt the view that has been held by the Ontario Human Rights Commission that if left unchecked, and I'm quoting, if left unchecked, sexual harassment in the school setting, and we could substitute here for the other institutional settings that fall under the ministry's portfolio, has the potential to escalate to violent behavior, including sexual assault, if it is not checked. It creates this toxic environment in which persons' rights can be infringed.
To date, there has been some 14 presentations that have come before the committee. It is hoped that the bill become law over the legislative year. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
The decorations on some business outlets are already up. You know what that means? The Christmas holiday is upon us. But how does one safely navigate the busiest time of year during a pandemic? The Health and Wellness Ministry has some tips on how to do so. Head of the ministry's Health Promotion and Protection Branch, Dr. Simone Spence, shared some suggestions during the ministry's latest COVID-19 conversations. Head of the ministry's Health Promotion and Protection Branch, Dr. Simone Spence, is urging Jamaicans to stay home this Christmas. Dr. Spence says if you don't stay home, then stay safe.
So we need to be wearing our masks at all times, except when you're going to eat or have something to drink. So even if we're coming together, we need to be wearing our masks. We need to make sure we're keeping and maintaining the physical distance of 6 feet, especially when it is that we're interacting with persons who don't live within our own households. And make sure we have the mask on while we are speaking and not removing it, like putting it underneath the chin or taking it off completely when we're talking and interacting with other persons. Making sure that we're washing our hands as well or sanitizing with our alcohol-based hand sanitizers, especially when it is that soap or, soap and water are not available for us to use at that point in time. And we also need to be aware of the measures that are currently in our Disaster Risk Management Act. So adhere to all the COVID-19 protocols that have been set. For example, the curfew limits, the limits in terms of the numbers for social gatherings, etc.
So what activities can we safely participate in during this Yuletide?
We have had some economic hardships during this period of time, so decrease the stress that you're putting yourselves under due to spending. So limit your spending, try not to overindulge, and manage your expectations from now. And also try to manage the expectations of your family as well in terms of what to expect that you're going to be able to do and accomplish during this time.
She is suggesting that we develop a close circle of friends. Keep in contact online.
Make sure you're calling your elderly relatives and friends. Make sure you're keeping in touch with them. Do the family Zoom calls or Skype calls, especially in trying to keep in touch with persons over long distances who don't live close to you. And engage in more family activities, especially within the household, to decrease the stress.
Dr. Spence suggests planned activities at home like movie nights and online church fellowship. If you plan to host events, ventilation is key.
Have a small outdoor gathering. If gathering inside it's going to be inside, make sure your windows are open so you increase the ventilation. Limit the number of guests, so make sure you are aware of what it is stipulated in the Disaster Risk Management Act, which changes from time to time. Clean and disinfect high-touch surfaces and items before you use them. Make sure you limit the number of people in the food preparation area so it's not a crowded space. Have your guests bring their own food and drink. And if you're sharing food, have one person share food and use single-use options in terms of your utensils and the things that you're using to serve.
She also suggests online shopping instead of going to the store. And if you have to go physically, then go early. And if you're traveling to Jamaica this Christmas,
before you arrive, you have to apply on the Jam COVID-19 website for entry, and also to reiterate that after arrival, you're expected to serve your 2 weeks of quarantine in Jamaica if you're staying that long a period here.
For months now, the public has been urged to social distance, sanitize, and wash hands often, and of course, wear a mask. By doing these practices, we can assist the hundreds of healthcare workers grappling with this pandemic. Here are the latest COVID-19 figures.
63 new COVID-19 cases were reported on Thursday, leaving the overall tally at 10,151. 4,334 of that number are active cases. 25 recoveries were also recorded. That total is now 5,332. At this time, there are 22 moderately ill and 12 critically ill patients. 87 persons are currently hospitalized. No deaths were reported over the past 24 hours. That total remains at 235. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is urging countries to remain vigilant in monitoring and containing the spread of COVID-19. This as the health agency continues to work on the safe delivery of COVID-19 vaccines as soon as possible. Assistant Director of PAHO, Dr. Jabas Babrusta, gave an update on the situation at a recent virtual press brief. Assistant Director of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, Dr. Jabas Barbosa, wants countries to remain vigilant in monitoring their respective situations and prepare to adapt their responses to contain the spread of COVID-19.
But while the region continues to face challenges in responding to the virus, the past week and this week has brought some good news regarding the development of potential COVID-19 vaccines. This is encouraging, and we are eager to review the accompanying data. However, we must be clear, only a vaccine that has proven safe and effective will be approved by regulators, endorsed by the WHO, and ultimately made available through COVAX facility.
Noting that delivery of a safe and effective vaccine will be costly, Barbosa disclosed that the latest projection for the region is that vaccinating 20% of the population will cost more than $2 billion.
And while these figures are high, vaccines are both a smart and necessary investment. This is why PAHO has been working with member states to ensure that every country that is interested will have access to the COVAX facility.
Director of the Department of Communicable Diseases, PAHO, Dr. Marcos Espinal, says rumors and conspiracy theories regarding COVID-19 vaccines could disrupt vaccination efforts and impede the COVID-19 response.
We will have a vaccine. We still don't have it. As Dr. Barbosa said, we have very encouraging preliminary data. We still do not have the vaccine, but we should not get desperate. We wouldn't like to see the second wave in Latin America. We have not finished with the first one, but based on the lessons learned, if we continue with the measures, if we continue with the educational programs in connection with the use of face masks, hand washing, social distancing, and more so now with the holidays, Christmas, it is important to prevent.
Vaccines save millions of lives each year. Vaccines work by training and preparing the body's natural defenses, the immune system, to recognize and fight off the viruses and bacteria they target. PAHO is working with the World Health Organization under the COVAX facility to ensure the safe distribution of COVID-19 vaccines as soon as they are available. The House of Representatives recently voted to amend the Bank of Jamaica Act. Host Gabriel Thompson takes a closer look at the amendments and delves into other key market movements in this extended edition of the Business Report.
On Tuesday, the House of Representatives passed the Act to amend the Bank of Jamaica Act. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark, who piloted the bill, said it is designed to modernize and strengthen the BOJ and allow for greater transparency and accountability to maintain national economic well-being.
The principles for modernization of the Bank of Jamaica outlined in this bill to amend the Bank of Jamaica Act are in keeping with modernization of other central banks, which have led to greater transparency, independence, and accountability in the conduct of monetary policy, ensuring for better economic outcomes.
The bill, originally tabled in 2018, benefited from the contribution of members from both houses of Parliament and from both sides of the political aisle, in addition to comments during the Joint Select Committee process from various stakeholders. In supporting the bill, opposition leader Mark Golding said one of the main objectives of the legislation is to establish inflation targeting in law in Jamaica.
In practice, it had already been commenced because the government set an inflation target during the period prior to this bill being produced and tabled, but it wasn't provided for in any legislative framework. And this bill now enshrines inflation targeting as one of the principal, really the principal objective of the Bank of Jamaica. This is a very important issue because that was not previously the primary role of the central bank.
The Minister of Finance and the Public Service also said government's capitalization of the central bank to the tune of $50 billion over 2 previous budgets was critical in ensuring liquidity in the system, better enabling the government to cushion the effects of the global pandemic.
It's a good thing that we did it, and we did it at that time. When the pandemic hit Jamaica earlier this year and asset prices began to fall and banks, customers of banks no longer were necessarily paying on time, obviously with the forbearance that was given, liquidity became an issue. And the central bank was able to inject over $50 billion of liquidity into the system by their own, I'm just paraphrasing what I've heard the governor say, by purchasing bonds from financial institutions. And by purchasing those bonds, which are assets that they held, they, by virtue of doing that, injected cash into the system, which has allowed for Jamaica to absorb the pressures that have come from this crisis.
Dr. Clark noted that amendments to the Act are an important step to modernize Jamaica's monetary system.
The bill is designed to modernize and strengthen the central bank. A robust, strong, transparent, accountable, institutional framework for a central bank is consistent with national economic well-being. This bill, Madam Speaker, clarifies the mandate of the central bank, provides for capitalization, adequate capitalization of the central bank, and institutes a modern and robust, accountable, transparent institutional framework. It minimizes the prospect of fiscal dominance, as we have had in Jamaica's past, by restricting conditions on which the GOJ can borrow from the central bank and their amounts.
The legislation will now be sent to the Senate for its approval. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE combined index declined by 2,427 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 75 stocks, of which 29 advanced, 30 declined, and 16 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 8 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Barita Investments. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. NCB Financial Group Limited was the volume leader with 2.2 million units, followed by Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with 1.9 million units, and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 1.5 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Thursday, November 19, ended trading at $148.50. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $111.87. The pound sterling traded for $193.61, and the euro ended trading at $177.15. Oil prices firmed on Friday and were on track for a third consecutive weekly rise, buoyed by successful COVID-19 vaccine trials, while renewed lockdowns in several countries to limit the spread of the virus capped gains. Prospects for effective COVID-19 vaccines and hopes OPEC and its allies will keep production in check have bolstered oil markets this week. Brent crude futures gained 28 cents to $44.48 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 17 cents to $42.07 a barrel. And that does it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, visitors to St. Lucia will now be charged per person per night on room rates above or below US $120. The government, in collaboration with the St. Lucia Tourism Authority and the St. Lucia Hospitality Association, announced the enactment of a tourism levy. The SLTA, in an update on tourism on Thursday, provided details on the tax.
Guests lodging at registered accommodations will pay a nightly tax on their stay from the start of next month. The fees are part of the government's tourism levy and are earmarked for the operations of the SLTA, Village Tourism Development and Tourism Council. Children under 12 will not be required to pay the tax.
That effective December 1st, a tourism levy will be applied to visitors arriving on the island. That tourism levy is an amendment of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority Act number 8 of 2017, and that will apply to visitors who are between the ages of 12 to 17 years old, being responsible for 50% of fees. Below 12 years of age, fees will not apply. And of course, adults, the fees definitely would apply.
Guests can pay from about $8 to $16 EC for one night, depending on the rate of the room. Funds from the tax will also be used for promoting the destination.
The fees would range between, it would be $3 for rooms that are less than $120 US per night, and $6 for rooms that are above $120 US per night. And of course, with that, the St. Lucia Tourism Authority being the collectors of that levy, the hotels pretty much would be the collectors of the levy and remitting to the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. And these funds would be definitely used for the marketing and promotion of the destination.
Public Relations Manager at the SLTA, Jareen Georgie, says with funds allocated for marketing, the company can use part of its subvention for other causes.
The St. Lucia Tourism Authority will continue to do all in its power to market the destination in terms of the various niches. Romance for us is a very big one. Adventure, family, health and wellness. We know a lot of people focus on dive as well. So for us, there are various niches that we really market the destination with and will continue to do so. Annually, a subvention of about $35 million is allocated to the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. And so we've heard our government officials indicate that that subvention will now be used in other areas of healthcare, education and national security. And so we look forward to what these funds can do for the development of the country while tourism pretty much generates its own for the marketing of the destination.
The government will also decrease the VAT on accommodations from 10 to 7% effective December 1st, 2020. Gina Filippi, HCS News Force.
Developments in Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley on Thursday announced that Diego Martin will be the country's next borough. Dr. Rowley says there will be 2 new boroughs coming in 2021. Sunil Lala reports.
Diego Martin and Siparia will be upgraded to borough status. This was revealed by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley at the opening of the new Diego Martin South Community Center on Thursday. He said plans are well underway to make this a reality in the near future.
The corporation has already agreed and has advanced to the cabinet that it wants Diego Martin to become the next borough in the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. We have received your recommendations and steps are being taken to accept it. So in 2021, there are to be 2 new boroughs in Trinidad.
Dr. Rowley said the opening of the new community center was another step in improving the lives of people in Diego Martin, pointing out a list of projects that have been completed within the last few years. He pointed out that the Diego Martin North Community Center is next on the agenda, as well as a new library, which Dr. Rowley said will connect Diego Martin to digitized TNT.
There is to be a library to be built in the Diego Martin Valley. And that library is not just be a place where you store books and go to get books to read. It's going to be Diego Martin's connection to the digitalized Trinidad and Tobago. Look forward to that. That is a project high up on the priority list. And when that is over, all of you can say with one voice that Rowley ain't do nothing in Diego Martin.
The new community center replaces the old structure that was built in the 1960s. It is also the 45th community center built since the People's National Movement took office in 2015. It is outfitted with a gym, kitchen, AV room, and training room. Sonolala, TTT News.
In sports, Athletes Village for next year's Tokyo Olympics will be far from the norm. There will be no late-night parties in the Athletes Village. No nights or early mornings on the town. In fact, athletes will be encouraged to leave Japan a day or two after they've finished competing. This, according to the International Olympic Committee member John Quotes, who is in charge of overseeing Tokyo preparations. He was speaking on Wednesday at a briefing for the Olympics and Paralympics. Coates accompanied International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach to Tokyo this week and met with the Prime Minister to beef up support with key Japanese sponsors. The 2020 Tokyo Games were postponed in March of this year owing to the novel coronavirus pandemic. And that's our package. On behalf of our entire production team here at PBCJ, thanks for watching and pleasant viewing.